actual. Okay, here I'll start with this one because this is the one you had, right, of Devin Nunes, and you didn't play it, right? Or did you play it?
I didn't play it.
Okay. So this is from Ashton Forbes. This is a good way to
nuclear fusion has always been there. It really is the holy grail. It's like the sun, but we haven't been able to harness that yet. It just hasn't, the technology, the science, but that's the difference between TAE and all the other nuclear companies out there around the world. This is the one that won't rely on rare earth elements, won't have to rely on a bunch of magnets. And it's the only company that's actually built something. That's what we were most impressed with, was not just all the scientists and all the engineers that had worked with private funding, all private funding, I must say. And now what they're looking to do is they need a way to get in and access the public markets. We provide that opportunity for them to access the public markets. And I would just encourage everyone to actually look at this company. I think when you...
I wonder how they would, how they provide that avenue to public markets. Like, what, how does that work?
When you look around the country, look around the world, this is the world's premier nuclear fusion company without question. And when we talk at Trump Media and Technology Group, what do we want to do? We want to acquire crown assets, crown jewel assets. This is a crown jewel asset that could change the world.
Crown jewel. I mean, I do appreciate that kind of, that aspect. Not that I believe the guy or not, but like that they want to change the world with it. I got to try and get out of here and go to Ashton Forbes. Ashton Forbes says Trump has just acquired the crown jewel at Tri-Alpha Energy. Why is this important? TAE doesn't settle for hot fusion. They do cool fusion. They don't need helium-3 from the moon. They use boron-11, which is common. Aneutronic fusion means no neutrons, aka no heat radiation, no steam cycle. They do direct conversion to electricity, much more efficient than other fusion methods. He's been talking about this for a while, Ashton Forbes, about this aneutronic fusion. He thinks it's the answer to a lot of these tech problems.
Electronic?
For the followers, I told you explicitly this day would happen, and to be ready, Trump usurped Helion and sided with TAE. For the normies, remember later that I told you aneutronic fusion was the answer, and then ask me how I knew. It's a fun story. So that's that one. Okay, so now we're going to get a bunch of different views about this whole thing, including the assassination, I would call it, because it's pretty, it's probably not officially an assassination yet, but it seems like it. Next generation of plasma drones that don't rely on fuel and can stay aloft indefinitely. That's what aneutronic fusion can do. Now you understand why DJT just merged with TAE. And then here's Lockheed Martin's compact fusion reactor. Looks almost identical to this TAE's newest reactor because they both use field reverse configuration with high beta. Lockheed's CFR went dark around 2018. Charles Chase, who convinced LM, Lockheed Martin, to build it, claims it was successful. People arguing back and forth.
Is this part of disclosure then?
Well, I don't know. Okay, let's do this one now. I wasn't planning to comment on the death of MIT professor Nuno Luriero without looking closely at his research first, and what I found is quite intriguing. He was director of MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center at Hermann Feshbach, professor of physics, working on nuclear fusion to create a virtually unlimited clean energy source. I think I'm going to blow you away, Darren, with some. Oh, fuck. Zeus just stepped right in my drink. Sorry, just
God of gods.
He stepped right in my drink. He's got fucking Red Bull on his foot now. To create a virtually unlimited clean energy source. I'm going to blow you away with what this guy said, because it has to do with your work. So it's
my work.
Yes, this has to do with your work. It's going to blow. Just you wait and see.
This is my work, buddy. You're looking at
it. Well, it's going to have to do with it. He was shot multiple times at night in his home, but he's not the first. Eugene Malov, another MIT scientist passionate about fusion energy, was beaten to death outside his home in 2004 with 32 lacerations to his face and body. Why his research represented an existential
Yeah,
threat.
why can't you just shoot the guy? I mean, doesn't that seem...
Understand that Luriero specifically worked on understanding magnetized plasma dynamics, magnetic reconnection, plasma turbulence and confinement, and transport mechanisms in fusion plasmas. His research directly helped inform the design of fusion devices capable of harnessing the energy of fusing plasmas, bringing the dream of clean, near limitless fusion power closer to reality. What makes his work so dangerous for certain players is it attacked precisely the scientific bottlenecks preventing fusion from becoming commercially viable. In a tokamak plasma, see, this is what this tokamak is like that $6 billion machine, that massive laser. You saw the picture of it behind Devin Nunes, I think, and it like creates over unity by a tiny little bit. Remember when you and I were talking about Malcolm Bendall stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, they can barely get it in a $6 billion machine. It's confined by extremely powerful toroidal magnetic fields, but magnetohydrodynamic instabilities like tearing modes, disruptions, edge localized modes can destroy confinement in milliseconds and damage inner walls. I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. If it becomes viable in 10 to 15 years, it doesn't just displace an industry, it renders obsolete the entire current global energy infrastructure valued at $8 trillion. A fusion plant uses deuterium extractable from seawater. Did you hear about that? That these machines are going to be cleaning seawater? Desalinating water
Desalinating at the same time. That's like the byproduct.
in virtually infinite quantities. 1 liter of seawater contains enough deuterium to produce the energy equivalent of 300 liters of gas, and tritium is produced via reactions with abundant lithium. This raw material is inexhaustible, decentralized, free, and accessible to all countries without geopolitical dependence. But fossil industry fundamentally relies on controlled scarcity and geopolitical dependence. Oil and gas are geographically concentrated, blah, blah, blah. Fusion destroys this model. Seawater, energy. I'm just going to skip through it all because I've got more to talk about. If he and his team succeeded in precisely modeling these instabilities and developing active control techniques via AI, that's interesting, and real magnetic feedback, it would reduce the timeline to commercial fusion by 5 to 10 years. The real question is, how many brilliant scientists must die under suspicious circumstances before we start protecting our research in strategic fields? He said in 2019, there are people who are driven by technology and engineering and others who are driven by fundamental mathematics and physics. We need both. When we stimulate theoretically inclined minds by framing plasma physics and fusion challenges as beautiful theoretical physics problems, we bring into the game incredibly brilliant students, people who want to attract to fusion development. We want to attract. So that's pretty interesting from a more science aspect. This is from Laura Abelai, short excerpt of murdered MIT professor explaining how, oh no, I don't want to do that one yet. That's about your work. Okay, here's this one. This is from John Rappaport. Nuclear fusion murder, nuclear fusion business deal, coincidence? What are the odds? So this is getting to what you were talking about. The fusion deal. Trump's Truth Social, the parent company, just makes a $6 billion with TAE, a fusion energy company. The story by itself is pretty weird. The president goes into business with a company whose valuation and future can be positively impacted by White House policy and presidential bloviation. Speaking of which, there is now a bill in Congress to create an Office of Fusion Energy as part of the DOE. The fusion murder. At just about the same time as the business deal, Professor Nuno was murdered. He was the director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center. He was a major figure in fusion research. How often do you hear about 2 major nuclear fusion stories within the same day, 2 or 3 day span? The murdered MIT researcher was a major figure in a field that is small. There aren't a whole lot of high-level fusion researchers around. People are asking, and they should, was the murder of the researcher by the same man, Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, who killed 2 students at Brown University, a way of shutting up Professor Lorio and shutting him down? I heard that on a podcast that they were after The guy that did the Brown University shootings was after this professor. Did he have something crucial to say about fusion energy? Did he know something few other people do? Was he about to go public? There are all kinds of possible points he could make. And then, of course, he wants you to go to the paid part. This is from Bob Grenier. Of course, he's Wing. And we all know the tragic story of Malov 56. That's what we just talked about, that other guy that got murdered. Deception, behind the deception regarding cold fusion, and became one of the strongest early advocates who founded the recently financial collapsed Infinite Energy magazine and was the former MIT science writer. He was beaten to death in his childhood home, blah, blah, blah. We've already talked about that. Despite 3 suspects being arrested in 2014, the trials are ongoing with a robbery motive suggested. So Nuno, 47, MIT, I'm going to skip all the stuff we've already talked about, was shot multiple times in his Brookline home, December 15th. So that's exactly a week ago, dying the next day. A homicide investigation is underway with no suspect in custody or motive disclosed. Now for something positive. Ashton Forbes pointed to a global nonsense era online conference presentation presented by Nuno, which I reviewed in order to learn about his work. He was clearly brilliant. I was intrigued by the only slide he chose to skip over. In the second or so, it was on the screen. It looked like it was citing an MHD, which is magnetohydrodynamic simulation, equating or relating it to black holes. We will never know, because he cut it short and chose not to give his view on the work. Interesting, eh? This is where he talks about plasma physics meets quantum computing, because he's talking about the vast computational resources that plasma physics requires. But I'm going to keep going on. Bob Grenier continues. Parfait, Kyle, Alexander Filipov, and Benoit Saruti, first principles plasma simulations of black hole jet launching. So this is what this guy's slide was talking about. In the first paragraph, the abstract reads, I don't know if I should even read all this. They're talking about the jets of plasma emanating from active galactic nuclei and all this stuff. It gets pretty sciencey. It's generally studied using MHD, a fluid approximation for the plasma. I'm going to skip past all that sciencey stuff because I don't think it's really relevant. I think the former MIT director of the Plasma Science Fusion Center, Nuno, even though he skipped it, was correct to include attempts by Filipov, etc., et al., to explain black holes using modified MHD simulations. I thank him for allowing me to see into his tentative thoughts on the subject and for inadvertently, in depth, introducing me to the work of Filipov. I argue that considering fractal MHD, including the math for fractal toroidal moments, that's what Bob talks about all the time, would lead to better simulations, as it shows it leads to better physical representations of topological monopoles explored at Aalto University in Finland. Without these fractal considerations, you do not get the asymmetry and non-radiating boundaries of these systems, and you do not end with a stable core. I argue that since it works on all scales, going down this route will explain what Eugene Malov staked his career on, support of cold fusion. Why? Because I believe it is all the same thing, as above, so below, order out of chaos, and it is based on at least the WWWWW yin-yang sacred geometry. Ancient hominids clearly understood this. How did we get so stupid? It is a tragedy that Nuno was taken from us just as he was learning to see. Now to Brian Rommel. The assassinated professor was one of the brightest minds on the subject, saw the earth as an... Okay, here we go, Darren. This is where it gets into your work. But before I do that, I'm going to do some skeptical posts. This is from Sasha Latapova. I argued back and forth with her on this one. I'm very saddened by his death. However, my theory why he was killed is different. I believe he was eliminated because he may have realized that technology was never going to succeed. Similar to how several Apollo crew members got suddenly dead in a variety of accidents after raising alarms about non-workable technology to fly to the moon. My theory will be confirmed if this crime remains unsolved. And I said, but it is working in many other applications, so there is that. And then she's like, what is working in what applications? I said modern alchemy, thunderstorm generator, transmuting exhaust molecules, UAP propulsion, cold fusion, etc., etc. Have you followed quantum heat? Quantum theory is baloney on steroids, so not much interest for me. He wasn't working on any thunderstorms or UAP. So, okay, here we go. This is about your work now. This is back to Brian Rommel. So, one of the brightest minds on the subject, he saw the Earth as an active magnetic dynamo system that must reverse polarization on a regular cycle. He saw plasma in a new analog way. His death is tragic on many levels.
Yep.
This is actually Nuno.
So my question is, in the last slides, you mentioned that the Earth's magnetic field was constant in the last billion years.
Rough.
So, yeah, is it right that the Earth has lost 10% of its magnetic field in the last 150 years? And how
Yeah.
come?
So, excellent question, Alec. Thank you. So, when I say the Earth's magnetic field has remained roughly constant, what I mean is, if you look over longish timescales, its magnitude is roughly constant. Of course, it varies, right? And it reverses sometimes, right? And those
Just casually, its magnitude is consistent, but it reverses sometimes.
reversals of the Earth's magnetic field. So, reversal meaning the North Pole becomes the South Pole and vice versa. So those happen. And there's even interesting stories you can tell about how those reversals of the Earth's magnetic field correlate with mini ice ages and things like this. Okay. But the idea is that if you average over these periodic reversals, right, or fluctuations, the amplitude of the field has remained roughly constant. Okay. And the idea is that if there was no induction, if there was no dynamo working, you and I wouldn't be talking, right? The magnetic field would have diffused very quickly, right? Within 10 to the 5 years, the Earth would be left without a magnetic field, and the Earth's magnetic field protected from cosmic radiation.
So I think what he's saying is that it has to flip to protect its field. Like to keep the field up, it has to keep doing this now and then, which is, to me, is super fascinating. And that's from Zach Voorhees, Google whistleblower. It gets even crazier. The assassinated plasma scientist warned that the Earth requires periodic magnetic reversals to sustain its field. No reversal, no dynamo, the magnetic field dissipates. And then this is again, it just got weirder. This MIT fusion professor story just took a weirder and weirder turn. Listen and make it make sense.
The car that he had used to not only drive to Rhode Island, but then back to Boston. And then there was the security footage that captured him within a half mile of the professor's residence in Brookline. And there is a video footage of him entering an apartment building in the location of the professor's apartment. And then later that evening, he is seen about an hour later entering the storage unit wearing the same clothes that he had been seen wearing right after the murder.
So you have an extensive video canvas as part of this investigation that leaves you no doubt.
This is the evidence we have right now. We are coming to you tonight because the federal complaint was unsealed, and we wanted to provide you with the information and to assure the public that law enforcement collectively believe that we have the person, that we identified the person, and that person is dead, and that he was the person responsible not only for the Brown shootings, but for the Brookline shooting.
Oh, it was the same guy that responsible for all of it. What? What is going on? What? So was it just the conservative, the young conservative chick that got shot 1 million times, and the person behind her happened to be the other one that died?
Mm-hmm.
that looks like a hit job, and then at the same time, the same day, this MIT gets shot by the same guy. I mean, is that just like a convenient scapegoat or
Scapegoat? 100%. Don't you think?
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe not.
So here's the other one I skipped over. Laura Abelai, short excerpt of the professor explaining how Earth require. Okay, this is the same thing. Reversals, north becomes south. He acknowledges magnetic reversals and says reversals correlate with many ice ages and things. Could a reversal in Earth's polarity explain past cataclysms? The CIA classified document seems to suggest so. And of course, they're looking at the one that your work on the Garden of Eden, or what's it called? What's your work?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, yeah. So, oh, man, this gets really interesting. And then I wanted to just read this quick one here that this is from DC. Geomagnetic flips themselves take 2 to 12,000 years. The last full flip was 780,000 years ago, but we've had shorter failed flips like the Lechamp event 42,000 years ago, where the field collapsed to 5 to 10% and the poles wandered off. Right now, Swarm, NASA, and ESA are all acknowledging the same thing. The dipole is weakening, the South Atlantic anomaly is expanding, and the poles are migrating toward a new balance. I'm arguing that these aren't isolated curiosities. They fit into a larger 6 to 12,000 year cycle, a torque cycle in Earth's interior, CDIGR, and that we're already in the unstable phase of that cycle, heading toward the next excursion or flip. The reversal isn't a movie that starts one day. It's long, measurable ramp, and we're on that ramp. Have you heard that one before?
A long ramp don't sound so bad.
I'm going to send that to you. Just, I'll send that one to you. So you got it for your files.
For my files, my work.
Well, what's your thoughts on the whole thing? I mean, did you expect him to be an advocate of pole flipping?
No, but a lot of people are, so I can't see that being why they killed him.
No, and I'm not necessarily saying that, but it does add to the evidence that something is going on, right?